Welcome to the Perspective Podcast, where we explore different perspectives on success. Join us as we invite successful individuals from a variety of fields to share their stories and insights. Tune in to hear thought-provoking discussions and learn new ways of thinking about success.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Perspective Podcast, where we bring different perspectives from different people. And today we are blessed to have a close friend of mine, actually, growing up. We crossed paths, and since then, he's done a lot of cool stuff that we're excited to share with you guys. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest, Jason Fanaika. What's up, Jason?
What's good, bro?
Man.
Appreciate you for having me on.
Yes, always, man. I'm glad we reconnected.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So normally with our guests, we like to start off in the beginning, but I'd like to start off with this one, kind of to where we met. I think I was maybe like 9th grade when we met, and we met at the Hooley house. I mean, anybody who grew up in my group of friends, your group of friends, the Hooley family in Linden, Utah, man, they provided a really cool spot for all of us to kind of kick it. So yeah, man, share your view on that. I remember the night we met, but yeah, go ahead and share your view on that.
Well, first, big shout out to Mama Who and Doug Hooley for letting us come through, freaking kind of ravaging through their whole groceries and all their kitchen.
Man, it was crazy.
I remember going over there and eating, but I remember, with you, Austin, where we grew up, you were a legend here. So for me, being in like the community that we were in, there wasn't, as far as the exposure of athletes that look like us, or at least for me as a little kid that looked like me in our area, there wasn't that many of us. And so I just remember hearing stories about you, first of all, from Cade, which is the youngest of the Hooley family, and just being like, dang, like that's someone I need to, I want to be able to meet. And then the first time, I'll never forget this, coming over there to the house, and just right when we walk in, Mama Who is like, Doug's back there wrestling Austin right in the backyard.
Yes, bro.
So I remember freaking running back there, watching the show. Man, that was my first encounter, I think, that I ever had with you.
Right.
But I just remember, man, being like, dude, this dude is hella big, hella strong. This is what I'm trying to be like.
Dude, it was crazy, man. Yes, I remember that night. So that night, it was kind of funny how it happened. I knew you guys pulled up because I remember I forgot how me and Cabry were talking, and somehow it came to like, well, my dad could beat you up or something like that. And then it turned into like, I think I like grabbed him from behind and like grabbed around his chest and was like, what's up, Doug? Like just playing around. And then we were in the kitchen. And then next thing I know, we were outside and it was just me and him and we were wrestling. And Doug is like that, man. He's a little guy, but he was like really like, dude, he was throwing cheap shots at me, bro. Like he was like pinching my sides and stuff. And anyways, next thing you know, like everybody's standing at the door just watching it. And we just kept going. I remember, and I think it was cold outside too. I was like, man, and we were wrestling in their backyard. But yeah, I didn't even know you were there. I really didn't even know you were there. I just knew that people walked in the kitchen area. And so I knew that people were watching.
I think we were on like 15 kids deep.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because, and for those of you that don't know, the Hooley house, anybody watching this that grew up in that area, like I said, their house, or like Jason said, we ravaged through their kitchen. They took us out to eat everywhere. Like they really hosted us. And man, I definitely appreciate it more than I didn't realize how nice we had it back then. So, man, shout out to the Hooley family. And that's actually this place I remember you. I remember everybody kept saying, hey, there's this other poly kid that I hang out with. And I was like, what's his name? And they said, his name's Jay. And his name's Jason. And I remember you walked up and you were still young. And I don't know when you hit your growth spurt, but this is kind of like the image I had. So we didn't talk a lot in high school because you went to Pleasant Grove, I went to Timpanogos, right? And you were a little bit younger, so we didn't really talk in high school. But I remember the first time I saw you, you were like a skinny kid. I remember you wearing a white tee with like a black and gray hat, and like you had some swag to you. I remember that, but you weren't. I I don't think you were that big when I met you.
Like I mean, back then everybody was rocking them white tees and the black
Yes.
tees, so it
Yes.
was, I mean, already kind of draping over us.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I mean, in high school, I wasn't super big. Probably like, I don't know, maybe my senior year, I ended up being 6'2", like 240. But my sophomore, freshman,
Yeah.
I was probably like barely pushing 6 foot, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like this skinny kid walked. I was like, "Hey, what's up, man?" I remember we said what's up. We dabbed each other up, and then that was like my first time I ever like really saw you because I didn't see you that night when we were wrestling with Doug. But that's so that, and then next thing you know, this is kind of my side of the story, and this is where I kind of want to fill in the blank. Is next thing you know, I'm on social media. Like I moved to California and I had a run at football down in Southern California. And next thing you know, I look at Jolynn Hooley, Mama Who, man. I looked at her Facebook and it was a picture of you playing for the Niners.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I'm like, hey, I know that. Like, it was crazy. So, I mean, I'd love to fill in the blank. Like, what? So, from the time we met, like, what kind of happened with the? Did you know football was meant for you? Because I think I remember you were baseball, weren't you?
I played a lot of baseball. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean that group that we were with. I mean, we probably played something like almost 200 games a year back
Wow.
then. So
Wow.
we were getting after it baseball wise, and Doug, he was one of our coaches, and so
Okay.
it was always like when we were over there, it was most of the baseball boys was with us,
Yeah.
just because we all, you know, we had Coach Doug as our coach, and so it was just a good spot to be away from the field and kind of hang out with. Just like you said, they were hosting everybody for years.
No, they were. They were
So
the one of the
they
nicest
had it
family.
down pat with us.
Yes, one of the nicest families you'll ever meet.
For sure, for sure. So, I mean, just from the first time that I met you, I mean, I couldn't have been. I maybe was a freshman or eighth grader.
Right.
I mean, that's how young I was. And then, just going through high school, I'm sure you know all the guys that, you know what I mean. We all grew up with, like Cephas.
Yep.
I mean, we had like Dallas Lloyd and those boys up in that Linden area. So
Yeah.
for me, it was mostly just trying to keep up with those guys. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say like I knew football was it,
Yeah.
but I had a really good group of athletes that I was pretty close with. And Cade, he was right there with us, just being a year younger than us.
Yep.
So you know, like I said, I was extremely blessed to be in that environment with a bunch of those athletes. Because come to my senior year, we had like, I want to say 8 guys go all D1, all on scholarships.
Oh,
And
really?
I think a huge credit to that was being able to have all of those recruits coming in for like Dallas Lloyd and Cephas,
Yeah.
and like Joe Kruger, you know, the Krugers.
That's right. Joe
So,
Kruger
I
went to
mean,
your school. He transferred over there that year.
yeah, came
That's
over
right.
our senior year. And I mean, honestly, that helped me out so much because I didn't have an offer until my senior year,
Okay.
or going into my senior year.
Yeah.
And we just had so many coaches coming through. I mean, my little brother by that time, he had signed with Stanford as a sophomore, not signed, but committed.
Yeah.
And so it just added to the opportunity of having coaches come through regularly and just getting a lot of different opportunities to kind of show them what I could do. So I was extremely blessed to be able to have the group that I grew up with.
Right.
After, going into my senior year, went up to a football camp up at Utah State.
Okay. Because that's where you
And
went.
then
Isn't that where you went?
that's
Okay.
where I went first. And I actually went there as a tight end. That's
Really?
what I got offered by.
Okay.
We were up at a camp, and then they had some coaches there watching one of the scrimmages, and we were playing against you. You ever been up to those camps and they put together like the
The
Renegade teams?
Renegades
That's
teams.
just like
Yes, I
randomly.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they had a Renegade team, and they had some really good dudes that were playing, and I got a chance to kind of showcase what I was about, and ended up catching like that scrimmage game. There's not that many reps, but probably out of 20 snaps on offense, I got the ball like easily 15 times of those
Really?
of that scrimmage. Yeah, it was wild just how it worked out. And I mean, my quarterback again was Dallas Lloyd, so that dude was slinging out there. Like,
Right.
he could get the ball anywhere, and he could make plays prolonged. Like he
Right.
could prolong plays really well just to be able to get his guys the ball. So
His IQ was there. I remember him.
my boy was smart,
Yeah.
like especially with football side of things. And honestly, Dallas was one of those guys that I grew up with, and watching how he prepared and watching how, you know what I mean, like the little details, the little intricate aspects of the game that he would try to exploit as far as like breaking down our opponents and stuff.
Yeah.
Again, like the group that I had, I was extremely blessed to be a part of just because like those guys helped me out so much. I mean, now you know Cepha. We had me, Cepha, Joe Kruger, Brian Sampson, and myself.
Yeah.
We all played the same position. And so like all of us, we were by our senior years, I was the shortest one at 6'2", 6'2" and a half, and then you had Cepha at like 6'3" and a half, then Brian Sampson at 6'4",
Mm-hmm.
and then Joe Kruger at 6'6", and we were all playing tight end together.
That's
So
crazy.
that room and that competitive atmosphere just for me was something that I really liked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's almost like not like the same type of feeling as like confrontation, but like that kind of rush or that kind of
Yeah.
like kind of antsy feeling. You know what I mean? And so being in the room with those other three, I mean, it just pushed me to try to be the best, especially out of our like just our group. And
100%.
so
Iron sharpens iron,
that,
bro.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, and I mean, even on top of that, with my little brother being a sophomore and getting offered by Stanford, that was a huge motivator for me just to look at it like, look, like I can get my schooling paid for too. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I grew up with this dude. I grew up with all these other guys. Like I know for sure, like we all do the same things. We're all preparing the same way. We all get hyped up for the games the same way. So, you know what I mean? And I think that type of mentality really helped me not only produce on the field, but also come closer to those guys.
You still in touch with
And I
him?
think that was, yeah. So talk to Cepha probably every day. He's got two boys
Oh, that's what's
that are
up.
about the same age as my sons. And so we get some training in. We got, they're on a little basketball team now, a little rec league team, and trying to get these boys some training just to learn, you know what I mean, how to run, how to move, how to change direction. So it's been fun. And then like Dallas, talk to him every once in a while. He's living out in New York now with his wife, and they're doing really well. So I get not too often, but still get a chance to speak to him probably every other month. And then you got Joe. I'll be hitting up Joe. We run into each other playing basketball,
Yeah.
trying to stay active.
Right.
But yeah, those guys, I mean, and Brian Sampson, he's doing really well living down south towards like Maple Mountain. And so, I mean, all our group, we still stay in contact with each other. But I think Cepha is one of those guys that I'd definitely be talking to all the time still. But,
No, 100%. Cepha's solid, man. I just remember my mom was actually one of his teachers at Aspen Elementary, and she kept coming home. And I was in junior high, and she kept coming home, and she was like, "There's this kid, and he can really play." And I was just like, "Whatever," you know what I mean? She's like, "No, he's really good." And I took it like so. It's funny that when we met, I was like, "Oh wow, he really can play. He was a baller," and so
baller.
he really was. That's what's up. Now let me ask you. So I mean, having that competition in high school, right? A lot of people aren't blessed with the opportunity to have that competition just on the team. You had it at the same position. So, and then you guys all went D1. So, was there like, what was the vibe in high school? Like, did you turn it up like your senior year because you knew you had, I mean, with those names and those players, you had to have D1 scouts at the games. What was that atmosphere like? Not only for you, but like just the school itself.
I mean, for us, it really brought us closer because you really like you're out there and you're competing, and you understand when you look at the game where like you have four guys that play the same position. Okay, so then what do we all bring to the table that's different so that we can all stay on the field at the same time? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like on offense, we had packages where like all four of us were out there. Then we had like DJ Doman, who was a track star in high school. Probably, I think he ran the fastest 4x1 in the state. Like our 4x1 team ended up winning, like the fastest record anyway. So he was hella fast. So I mean, for all of us, it honestly brought us close. I mean, we definitely had our fights.
Yeah.
We definitely had our disagreements, and we definitely had our little squabbles where, I'm better than you. No, you're not better than me. I'm better than you, type of thing. So
yeah,
I think at the end of the day, that brought us closer to each other as brothers, which in turn helped us to understand the game and to break it down a little bit different as far as like how we can attack different teams. You know what I mean? So you got 4 guys that play tight end. Most of the time you get 2 tight ends on the field at a time, and then you got to kind of go out wider to a receiver or even deeper into the backfield as like a fullback, running back type of position.
Yeah.
And so it honestly was a lot of fun just to be able to break down defenses and see how we could attack them, with all 4 of us on the field, and working with Dallas and really, really learning how his brain operates. That was a huge blessing for me, because it made the game slow down to where like I could see stuff, like especially with watching film, right? Like I'll see stuff before it happens, but then I'll be able to be more creative, but still stay sound to what we're trying to do as a team, if that makes sense.
100%. Yeah.
So I mean, that was super fun for me, and I mean, as the team, I think the team really rallied around, kind of what I mean. We all rallied around Dallas because that's our quarterback, and the dude was an amazing athlete. But aside from that, like I think everybody just understood that, like with these coaches coming in, it's a huge opportunity. So we had guys like Jordan Hymas, Joey Owens, Jordan Esteban.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and those are, I mean, most of those guys are, Esteban's a big Linden name, you know, and he was coming in as like a little shorter, skinnier linebacker, but he brought that fire and that juice, you know what I mean?
100%.
And I think for all of us, with the combination of all the creativity that we were trying to do on offense behind Dallas, and then with the juice that SD was bringing on defense, the atmosphere in that team, I mean, I think we didn't do anything. We didn't get to state or anything like that, but like we had like devotionals that we would do together. We did like different service projects together as a team.
Yeah.
And I think like that type of environment.
It sounds like you had a crazy camaraderie together.
The camaraderie was tight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we were tight knit, and we really felt, and I mean, I know, we all been in high school. And when you're in high school, you got these blinders on where it's like anything outside of what you're focusing on or what's right in front of you is really hard to account for. So
yeah,
I think for us, we really kind of pushed the pedal on that, as far as like we gave ourselves so much confidence, that it was, I mean, when it came time to play and we were all playing together, it was tough to beat us as a whole. You know what I mean? Man. So
that's nuts. And like you said, what a blessing to have that competition in high school. And then going in, so you got recruited by Utah State as a tight end. And so you show up to Utah State. What was that? What was the culture? Was there any culture shock involved? I mean, same state.
Yeah. No, I mean, Logan's different than everywhere else in Utah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you got to go through the canyon, first of all, through the, I think it's Brigham Canyon.
Yeah.
Up there. And like going through that canyon, especially like you're kind of isolating yourself, excluding all of Utah, because you got to wind through and go up and down all over the place through that canyon. So once you enter into like Promontory, it's like, I mean, it's Utah. You still get that Utah vibe, but it's so small knit,
right?
And like close. It's like, I mean, Linden and Pleasant Grove is pretty small.
Yeah.
And the community's pretty tight here, but with having the college there, like that's their NFL team or that's their professional sports team.
100%. So you show up.
So like,
were you starting right away? Like, what was the expectations like?
So yeah, I mean, getting recruited there. And like I said, I got recruited as a tight end. I was in the tight end rooms, and then also they put me in with the defensive ends, and so they wanted me to learn both. But I was heavily favoring the offensive side just because like I love to catch the ball and like run people over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that was my thing that I loved to do in high school. So doing all that, like we going through, and this is a little story that I'll share. I remember my first workout that I had up at Utah State. It was in June, so we graduated in May, and then we had like a week, maybe a week and a half, and then we had to report for summer camp for college.
Yeah.
And so I remember going up there and getting dropped off and going through, you know, that whole process. That was super interesting, just being able to kind of see my mom in a different light. You know what I mean? When your parents are going to drop you off and you're kind of entering into a new phase of life, being that you got to really be responsible for yourself.
Right. Manhood.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And so like just going through that process and that transition with my mom and being told like, got to really understand this opportunity. Like the people where we come from, this stuff doesn't happen too often. And so to really try to take advantage of the blessing that we have. And I mean, I was on such a high and so motivated, and then going straight into the schedule of like a 5:30 lift. Then you got summer school right after that. Then we've got film right after that. Then you have a players, and in the summers they do it a little bit different, but it's like a player ran practice, and you do that for a couple of hours, and then by that time you got to go to study hall. So then you go to study hall for a couple hours at night, and then right after that you're going home and going to sleep, and it's like 8 or 9 o'clock, but you got to be up at 5:30. So
yeah,
it's bedtime right after that. You know what I mean? So like for me, just being able to be on the high with being so motivated with my mom, and then coming down, just going through that whole transition of being responsible. Like I got to get to class, and if I'm not going to get to class, like there's going to be a big consequence for that. But also not only for me, it's more so like if I don't go to class, I can't show up for my teammates.
100%.
You know what I mean? If I can't go to class, then I can't show up and be accountable for my coaches, because going to class, like that's probably one of the easiest things that you can do as a college student in general.
Yeah.
Is just showing up to class. And so, I mean, in high school for me, like, I think like, I mean, I definitely wasn't the best student.
Yeah.
I wasn't always in participation. Like my participation was bad, but going into college and really seeing that structure flip, and then also understanding that like it's more than just me. Like if I don't show up to these classes, then I'm not going to be able to show up for my teammates.
I love that mindset. I love that perspective.
Well, I mean, it's easier, I think, just because like when they bring you in for the summer stuff, like you're thrown in with all of those guys,
yeah,
right? With all of the upperclassmen. And then you have like the player ran practices that are all ran by the upperclassmen. And so like you see these guys, and I think that was a different light that I've ever seen upperclassmen up to that point. What I mean by that is like in high school, like my group, we were so dominant and so confident in our abilities that like we would challenge the upperclassmen in high school just because we felt like, hey, you know, together, like single us off, yeah, y'all might be able to get us, but like with us together as a unit, there's not like I don't care how much older you are than us. Like as a unit, we're gonna be unstoppable.
Yes. And I want to set the stage real quick with that. Because anybody who has played sports, they know, but anybody who hasn't, if you get a D1 scholarship, you were the man. Like you were pretty well established at the high school you went to, and then you show up the first day, not only, and I'm speaking from experience for me and kind of just shedding light for our audience, right? Not only are you the youngest one there, but now all of a sudden, like it's the whole new scenario. Like you just don't know where you're going, and your confidence in your head of like the routine that's going to happen, everything is unknown. And so when you're saying this, I totally get it. I just wanted to set it for our audience that they know kind of like you go from being the man to being literally like a nobody. Maybe some of the players knew who you were. Maybe some of the players have heard about you, what you did in high school, but it almost doesn't even matter what you did in high school, like showing up that day. So sorry, go ahead and continue. So let me ask you that, like so you show up your first day, you're used to like challenging upperclassmen. What was the relationship with upperclassmen right there? Because you're brand new.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll even add more context to it. Like
Yeah.
I came in with a new coach,
Okay.
and so as the new head coach was coming in, we were like, my class was his first actual recruiting class,
Yeah.
and so the dynamic on the team, like, none of those upperclassmen were recruited by the current head coach. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like, they know that this new head coach is coming in to bring in his guys. Like, these upperclassmen they're cut they're there just because they were there before, but with all the recruits coming in, like, these new recruits are coming in to take their jobs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like, my coming into college, it was kind of like known that, like, okay, I'm going to start, whether it's going to be on offense or defense, it don't matter.
Yeah.
But like, coming into that room, and like I said before, like, in high school, I had my guys with me, like
Yeah.
Sefa, Dallas, Joe, like Esty, all those guys, my little brother. So like, as a unit, like, I was super confident of what I could do together with those guys.
Yeah.
Going into college and being touted as like, okay, he's coming in to start, like, and not having those guys with me, but having to go and compete with all these grown men.
Yeah.
To me, it was like, dang, like, that was I think a huge confidence shocker for me, just because like, I could really tell, like, at that point when I first got up there, like, I almost felt like, I don't want to say like excluded, but it was different for me. And the transition, luckily for me, I walked into Utah State and there was a lot of polys there, and so being able to be around all the polys up there, and like, you already know how the Polynesian culture is.
Yeah.
As far as like, we bring it. If one of us eats, we all eat, type of thing.
100%. Yeah.
But there for sure was still upperclassmen there that, like, they knew what the deal was, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like, they're men, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're not going to go down with a fight,
Right.
without a fight.
Yeah. It's almost like you have a target on your back.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, I remember my first day that I was up there at Utah State. It was the first workout ever. I ended up being late.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
I was like, yeah, it was all bad, bro. I was like 5 to 10 minutes late. And it's crazy because the night before we had a team meeting, and like, the coaches were all talking about the incoming freshmen and like how we were going to be the ones to like change the program around.
Yeah.
And then
Well, you sure did. You changed it. Showing up late.
No, I definitely did, because the whole defense had to do 100 up downs. I'll never forget, like, the upperclassmen, some of them were like laughing at me when I was showing up late,
Yeah.
or when I was walking in. But then like, the head strength and conditioning coach was Coach Simon, Evan Simon.
Yeah.
He's a beast. Probably 5'5", like, super short guy.
Yeah.
Maybe he's probably even shorter than that. But like, his voice, you could hear it like all throughout Logan.
Yeah.
If he wanted you to, like, how loud he would yell, I felt like it would shake the whole building.
Yeah. So he's the one who called you
I
out?
come in, called me out, like, tell me, oh, you think you're a freshman coming in here, you're about to change this program, but you think you don't got to be here on time, like, just talking all this mess. And I remember just sitting there, like, feeling like, dang, like, all these guys, like, they're supposed to be looking at our class as like the ones that will be coming in to help us compete finally. You know what I mean?
Well, take me back 30 minutes. So what happened? You woke up late? What was the reason you were late?
Woke up late.
Okay. So what time was the meeting? What time did you have to be there?
So we had a lift. It was a lift. So we had to be there at 6:30
a.m.
And I woke up at like 6:35.
And you're living on campus, I'm guessing.
Living on campus, and how it's set up there is the field, right? And then you can go up towards the school, and it's like a big hill. And then they had, like, where the school is at off to the side, probably like half a mile, was like these old apartments that they put all the football players in. So everybody, like, we were all in the same apartment complex. And my roommate, it sucked because my roommate was Bryce Walker. He was an offensive guy, and we lift at different times. So the offensive guys were in there at 5:30, and then that particular day the defensive guys were coming in at 6:30.
So you didn't even have a safety goat. You didn't even have somebody.
Didn't have a safety.
Yeah.
Didn't have a safe. No, but the crazy thing is that Bryce, I remember him kicking me and be like, "Hey, you got an hour. Get up and get ready."
Yeah.
And then like, I just remember like, "Oh, I got 5 more minutes. Let me chill."
Right. Right.
Oh, the worst feeling. My stomach dropped. Waking up at 6:35. End up like just putting on because you have like workout gear that you have to wear. Like everybody wears the same like shorts and shirt, same color shorts and shirt.
Yeah.
I remember I had grabbed the wrong color shorts and the wrong shirt, and I just ran from my apartment down to the field. Took me like, I mean, it's probably about a mile. Probably took me like
Fastest
5 minutes to run, bro.
fastest mile of your life, huh?
I was running, like out the door, putting on my shirt, trying to tie my shoes, like running.
Yeah.
So I get there, and I just remember like walking in, and like when you're an upperclassman and you look at the underclassmen when they know they're in trouble and they're just like walking the walk of shame.
It's funny. Yeah, the upperclassmen probably laughing at it.
Bro, I had like all the
Disappointment and
upperclassmen
laughter.
were laughing at me until the head strength and conditioning coach said, "Everybody, 100 up downs."
Jeez. So they set the tone. They used you as an example. Jeez.
No, they set the tone, and I think for me, there was like I said, we had quite a bit of polys up there, and
Okay.
so the poly boys like they really took me in after that and was like, "Hey, look, like we ain't about to all be doing punishment for you. We'll just make sure that you'll be good." You know what I mean? They really took care of me. They have like a little brother, big brother program thing at every college where
Yep.
like one of the underclassmen they get a big brother to kind of help them transition easier.
Yeah.
And my big brother was this guy named Junior Keaho, probably one of the best outside linebackers ever to go to Utah State.
Okay.
He was from Logan, went to Logan High, and he took he at the time when I met him as a freshman, he was a senior and he had a family, had kids, had his wife, and so I had a really good opportunity with him just on growing up. You know what I mean? Being able to be my own man, be independent, but also be a part of the team.
Love
And
that.
so big shout out to him because like I said, he really took me under his wing, kind of let me know like how it was up there. Like, up here in Logan, like football's good when we're winning. Like life is good up here when we're winning.
Yeah.
But like the price to pay to win is the sacrifice that you make today. All of this stuff that we're doing on a daily basis to compound so that we can win now instead of having to fight in the games and come out whoever's going to come out at the top at the
Right.
end. You know what I mean?
100%.
So,
And then I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because, I mean, you have a crazy story that kind of goes way deep. So then you go on a mission, correct?
so I was there at Utah State for 2 years.
Okay.
And then, actually, no, I was there for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had left right after the season to get ready for my mission.
Okay. And for those of you who don't know what a mission is a 2 year. I'm sorry, I didn't go on one, but it's a 2-year mission that you take with the church, with the LDS Church, and you go out and you serve, and they send you to a different location. And where did you serve at?
So I ended up going to Indiana,
Okay.
serving in the Indianapolis mission. So when I had left after my freshman year,
Yeah.
and so like the process to go on a mission, if you're not Mormon, like there's a lot of different things that you have to do as far as to show like your worthiness to go on a mission.
Yeah.
In the sense where like you got to be like spiritually sound, like you got to really be like I have a strong testimony and a strong conviction of the Book of Mormon and of Jesus Christ as your Savior to be able to go.
Yeah.
Or at least that's how it was portrayed to me as a young kid.
100%.
And so,
because you're taking 2 years of your life and you're dedicating it to serving 100% in the church and sharing the gospel.
Yep. And I mean that serving is like you're going to turn your life to the structure of how missionaries do their things. You know what I mean? And it's all based on to build your spirituality, but also help others come unto Christ. You know what I mean? And so that, I mean, like I said, like to get ready for that, my process in making sure that I had changed from like being a freshman in college and doing all the stuff that freshmen in college do, and then just kind of not really cold turkey, but like kind of just switching over to more like a higher
Standard.
spiritual plane to live on, if that makes sense.
No, it does. 100%. So you go on your mission, and
I actually didn't go yet.
Oh, so you didn't go.
So
Okay.
having to get ready for that took me it was like 7 months
Okay.
that I had, because you have to repent, and then you have to do, you have to just pass off a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
Before the stake presidents will feel comfortable with sending, because again, like, you're a kid and you're being kind of, you're a face or a spokesperson for a larger entity that's the church.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so, like, for me, like, that preparation process was really good, because I really had to change and shift the way that I was kind of looking at things on a spiritual level. So tried to get ready, took me about 7 to 8 months. And then, like, that's from January. And then in August, I decided to go back to Utah State after they had played their first game. So,
okay,
like, that whole transition. And so, like, they told me it'd be 8 months. I didn't end up going on my mission. They told me I had to wait a couple more months. And I was like, if I'm going to end up waiting like a year, I might as well just go back up there, play my year, and then right after just leave on my mission.
Yeah. So did you go back and play? You said you went one game into the season.
They played Auburn in their first game.
Yeah.
And they flew back on Sunday. I was over there on Monday.
Dang.
And then I played in the game on Saturday against Weber.
Yeah.
Ended up starting.
And did you play the whole season?
Played the whole season. Started in, I want to say I started half the season, and then towards the end of the season, ended up dealing with some injuries, but I was still playing quite a bit.
Yeah. So did you ever? So you ended up, after the season ends, did you end up going on your mission?
Ended up leaving out on my mission right after the season ended.
Okay.
And that was a super tough decision. To be honest, just because I had felt up at Utah State, and I was playing with guys like Bobby Wagner, who's arguably one of the best linebackers still in the NFL today.
100%.
And so, like, when I was there my second year, he was my big brother. So having the opportunity to be able to learn from him, it really changed even more so the game, in the aspect of, like, really cutting it down and really understanding the intricate details on the defensive side when you're trying to break the offense.
Because you're on defense. So, like, are you on defense right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you've moved to defense. Defensive end or outside linebacker?
Both. So my bad to rewind, but
You're good.
My freshman year ended up playing tight end, doing all that stuff during the summer. Then our first game was against Oklahoma, and one of our main DNs ended up getting hurt like the week before. And so they were like, okay, look, you can start at DN like our first game, or you can just come off the bench for both tight end and defensive end. And, like, I had all the poly boys, like, on the D line. They're like, hey, bro, you already know what to do. It's go time. You get a chance to start, let's start.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me, I think I had just decided, like, the week before, all right, I'm going to play defensive end. Ended up playing and starting a lot of the games my freshman year and growing from that. So then fast forwarding to my sophomore year, when I was playing with Bobby as my big brother, like, being able to really cut down offenses and try to exploit them by, like, using different disguises, or like baiting quarterbacks to one way, or baiting a receiver to release one way. He was really good at, like, breaking the game down that way. So I learned so much from him my junior year. And then I had other guys like Al Lapuajo, Bojay Filimoyatu.
Yeah.
Like, dudes like that were really helping me to really understand what football was. So
Bojay's crazy, man. I played with Bojay at Mount Sac.
Oh yeah, so you know all the Mount Sac guys, like.
Yep.
Yeah. So when I went on my mission right after my Utah State sophomore season. Ended up going on my mission for a year, came back early, and then ended up transferring to Utah.
How did that process
And that's where
go?
I played with Junior Salt.
Yes. So Junior Salt, quick story about Junior Salt. that was my welcome. Like, so he got back from his mission, I believe, right when I went to Mount Sac, and
Oh,
we had a workout, and they asked him, they're like, "How much do you think you bench?" And he's like, "I don't know. Let's start with 315." Fresh off his mission, he's like, "I don't know." And they're like, "What? We want to warm up?" He's like, "Yeah, let's start off with 315." This dude just
yeah.
throws 315 up like 7 reps, bouncing it off his chest, and then just racks it. No help off. And they're like, "What about you?" And I'm like, I went to California, worked at a warehouse, and I'm like, "Yeah, we're gonna start at one plate for me right now." But that was like my welcome. That was a crazy year. But Boj, he played over there too. So yeah, that's good teammate, really good guy. I like Boj.
Yeah.
So
Great guy.
so you transferred to
So,
University of Utah. Were you the only one that went
mhm.
over? How did that happen?
So when I went on my mission, the coaching staff at Utah, and that's when Boj and them they graduated right after that year.
Yeah.
But the coaching staff had left to Wisconsin.
Okay.
And so coming back after that year, it was either like, because I was just out there in Indiana,
Yeah.
Wisconsin's right above it.
Right.
And to be honest, like I wasn't really a big fan of like that what do you call it, like that mid Easter, I guess.
Yeah.
Wasn't like I wasn't really like I liked Indiana for the experiences that I gained, but like if someone asked me if I wanted to go back there and live there, I would never go there and live there.
Yeah.
So my coaches go back to Wisconsin and they're like, you can come here, we'll honor a scholarship for you, or you got to walk on. And Utah State, they had already told me, like, we're not going to honor your scholarship with the new coaches. So then, like, kind of my situation was already, like, I didn't have that many choices, I felt like.
Okay.
And then on top of that, my dad had gotten cancer, and they had three missionaries out at that time. And so I was the one in the middle. We had one that was pretty close to coming home, maybe like 6 more months. And then we had one that had just barely been out for a couple of months in my family, a missionary that had barely been out, maybe like 2 months.
You're talking
So
in
I
your
was out a
immediate
year.
family.
Huh?
Are you talking the football team had 3 missionaries out?
Oh, no, sorry, my family.
Your family. Okay, that's what I thought. So
Yeah,
your
my
immediate family
parents.
had.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you
there's 3
come
boys
home.
out on a mission at the same time.
Yeah.
And my dad had gotten cancer. And so I decided to come home to be able to help take care of some of the stuff that's going on here at home.
Yeah. And
And
for
then
our
that's when I
audience,
decided.
yeah, for our audience, one thing I talked about in my last podcast with the Polynesian community, whenever there's a hurt or a void in the older generation, the younger generation, it's just an automatic thing that they, even if they're not asked to, they always will just kind of fill the void, however it needs be. If it's sacrificing their dreams and goals to go get a job, if it's pushing towards their dreams and goals to help the situation, that's kind of the culture. And just letting our audience know, like, that's kind of what it is. So your dad diagnosed with cancer, you come home, and did you instantly go to University of Utah? Because you said you went to help your dad. Like, what was kind of that role?
Yeah, so I came home and got a job.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I wasn't even thinking of trying to go back and play football at that time.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know, like I had left Utah State after 2 years. And like it was so much fun to be over there and like to really understand football to the level that I learned it out there. But like you said, like at that time, we had a hurt in the family, we had a problem, and so I'm my mom's oldest son.
Okay.
I have 4 older siblings, but my mom, I'm her oldest, and so coming home and then being the oldest one that was here in Utah. All my older siblings, they were living away in California, and so having my dad being over here in Utah, I just kind of felt like I needed to come home and help out things. So I ended up getting a job at this credit repair company called Progression over here in Provo. And like they were super, like my bosses that were there, they were super helpful. My mom also worked there.
Okay.
And it's like we worked in like it's basically like a telemarketing center.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we were on the phones all day, and like having that opportunity to work with my mom was probably one of the best opportunities and blessings that I could have ever had.
100%. So at this point, you're thinking, I'm hanging up the cleats.
Yeah.
I'm going, and I mean, there's money in those jobs, right? Like if you perform well,
Yeah.
I know people that make a living off of it. So you're
Hmm.
working with your mom, you're appreciating the time, but when does, because you ended up going to the University of Utah. How did
Yeah.
that happen? Like how did that?
Honestly, it was like it was one of those things that because to be able to get to Utah, I had to go to Slick first, and I had to pass a bunch of credits. And the only way that because I had to pass, I want to say it was like close to 20 credits
Yeah.
that I had to pass.
Jeez.
Um,
So what's
and
that?
like
Almost like 2 semesters almost. Is that what it
two
is?
semesters,
Yeah.
and like I had to get that done in 4 months.
Jeez.
Like that's how they were kind of putting it to me because Utah, they had come to me and they're like, hey, we could open up a spot for you, but it's gonna happen in the fall. And when they came to me, it was like April,
So they came to
maybe
you.
March.
They came to you. University of Utah
Yeah,
came to
so
you.
my brother at that time, I had a younger brother
Okay.
that, like I said, he was just barely out on his mission, and he was suited to go to Stanford. But I think I think what Utah was thinking was if they can get me, they can get him too, and that was, I mean, I think they had talked to my brother before, and I'm not even sure what had happened during that conversation, but I can tell you right after that, sometime around that time, they had reached out to me and was like, "Hey, there's an opportunity. You can come play for us. You'd be a walk on, but we'd want you here by the fall."
University of
And
Utah is pretty
so,
known for that. They like to get families.
mhm,
They love that.
yeah, they
That's
do. They do that a lot. They do
yeah.
that to a lot of brothers. And
Jeez.
so, I mean, I was super thankful, and
Yeah.
like to be able to go to Slick, I couldn't take all of those classes in like a traditional, like a class schedule where it's 2 semesters just because I didn't have the time.
Yeah. Four
So I
months.
had to do, yeah, I only had 4 months. And so I had to take, they have, at Slick, they have a program where you can take a test. And if you pass out of the test, you'll get the credit for the class. And so I had to do that for 20 credits. I
Jeez.
think I had like 8 tests that I had to pass. And each test, you had to pay, I want to say we paid close to like $800 per test.
Jeez.
And so,
Out of
like,
pocket.
that was one of those things where like my family, like my dad wasn't working because he had just gone through like cancer and he was doing chemo and stuff. Like he was working like here and there
Yeah.
at home. His job was they were. I'm super grateful for them because they enabled him to work from home during that whole time that he was going through that.
Yeah.
Um, and then I mean, my mom had to get a job too, and she was working at that credit repair company. And then I had 3 younger siblings still living at home. And so, like, the whole dynamic of just getting them to where they need to be and kind of helping them out with all that stuff, like, that stuff seemed way more important to me than to try to save up or go get a loan for $800 for all these different tests that I had to take. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Um, like at that time, like money, like I mean, we just had to. I mean, we were struggling. You know what I mean? We were trying to get by, and so that's. I mean, coming home, getting a job myself, helping my family out financially. Like we were struggling just to get by, and so like the idea of going and paying this money to go and take these tests just to go to college, like again, that wasn't really like that didn't really make sense to me at the time.
Yeah.
You know, um, and so I'm not sure. So fast forward a little bit to going to Slick. My mom ended up getting, I don't know how she got it, um, but she got me the opportunity to take the classes. But when she approached me, it was kind of like, look, we're putting all this money into it. It's like you're gonna do it,
You
and you're
better
gonna
pass it.
pass
You
the
better
test.
pass it. Yeah.
Like there's not gonna like you're not gonna be going just to take these tests. Like you're gonna pass these tests no matter what, and
So
you're
they
only gonna take it once because we have to pay every single time you got to retake it.
yeah. So
And
they put a
so
lot of belief in you. They put a lot of trust in you.
yeah, my parents, yeah, I mean, my mom's probably one of the best motivators
I love that.
ever. Like
Yeah.
she'll get on your head and make you switch up real quick.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, thankfully, I ended up passing all those tests. They had like these little, I don't know, like the little workshops that you could go to try to like just gain, like re-educate yourself on some of these tests or some of
Yeah.
these subjects. Because it was like biology, history. I had, like I said, I had 8 different tests I had to take. So, anyways, um,
So you
ended
take
up
the
passing the
test.
test.
Yeah. So you pass the test. You're at University of Utah,
Hmm.
and which is bigger than Utah State. It's a bigger school.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
how immediate were you starting there?
I actually redshirted my first year because Utah State wouldn't release me.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I had to sit out or redshirt, and then that first year I had to pay for my schooling,
Yep.
and so I
Yep.
had a job still. I was working for my in-law. So right when I got up to Utah, um, like right after I had gotten in the door, probably like 3 or 4 weeks later, I got married to my wife. Big shout out to her because she's been through like I with my career, it's been wild just with everything that she's put up with. But
Love it. Yeah.
um, at the at the
Shout out to
beginning,
your wife.
yes, sir. Shout out to her. So, getting right when I got into Utah, redshirting, I remember it was the week that we played BYU. I want to say it was like our 3rd week
Mm-hmm.
of that season, but ended up getting married, which I think for me it helped me out with getting to know the teammates or my teammates on the team because all my teammates came to the wedding. I had Coach Witt. He came over. He came to the temple and was in the temple with us during our ceremony and stuff like that. So for me, like I think my transition in coming in as a transfer, coming in as a younger guy, it really helped the team kind of accept me in, if that makes sense.
No, 100%.
So like
That's
that transition of just going from being not in football to in football was so much easier for me just because of the guys that I had there. Like,
yeah.
I mean, in my class that I had there, it was, I don't know if you know who Moana Ofa Hengawe is.
Yep.
He's a big name from out this way in Utah County.
Yeah.
And we had other guys like Lol, Lotulele,
Yep.
Filippo Mokofisi.
Yeah. What year was this?
Um, this was 2013.
2013. And you played there for
Hmm.
2 years because I remember I was looking at your stats. 2015, you had a really good year.
Yeah, I was there 2013, 2014, and 2015.
Yeah. And so you
So,
have the success. I mean, the names you named, you have the success at Utah. Utah, I mean, it's an incredible program as it is, right? Um,
mhm.
when did in that process, when did the NFL start registering in your head?
It was my junior year because in my junior year, and you know this with football, like if there's any injuries, it's the next man standing, right?
Yep.
The next man up. Um, and so my junior year, I played everywhere in the box. Um, in the box, for those of you that don't know what the box is any position from the defensive line to the linebackers.
Yeah.
And so
Since you were pretty
my
hybrid.
soft just because we had injuries, like my first week, the first 3 weeks of my junior year, I was playing D end.
Yeah.
Actually, no, the first 2 weeks I was playing D end. 3rd week they switched me to D tackle. I played D tackle for 2 weeks, and then we had an injury, so then they switched me to middle linebacker, and I played middle linebacker for the remainder of the season. Started there, and I had a ton of fun. And so like
Yeah.
that's when I made my transition to middle linebacker. That's when I was like, oh, like I could go to the NFL as a linebacker, like maybe as a defense. And so like at the time, like defensive end, I'm 6'2.5",
Yeah.
maybe pushing 6'3", but I was like 280 as a defensive end, and so like that type of body type isn't really what the DNs look like, if that makes sense. Like most of those guys, if they're 6'3", they're like 240.
Yeah.
Being able to scream off the line, you
A
know
little
what I
bit
mean?
heavy.
Like
Yeah.
Von Miller,
Yep.
he's probably like 6'2", maybe 6'1", but he's only like 225.
Yeah.
So like those guys are super nimble, like almost like safety kind of out, like body types.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
Mhm. So I like once I made my transition to middle linebacker, I was like, oh, I could, you know what I mean? I can cover ground, I can make good reads. Like I was out in practice, it was crazy because like the first practice that I had at middle linebacker, I ended up getting like 3 picks off the number 1 quarterback, who was Travis Wilson at the time.
Yeah. So you were
When we
playing
do crossover,
middle linebacker at 280?
I was playing middle linebacker 280, bro.
Dude, that's okay. But you're
So
excelling. You feel it. It's just
yeah, like my first game playing middle in the Pac-12, I got 12 tackles,
yeah.
and like 4 of those were TFLs, and I was like, man, this is fun. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I can see more football, and just going back to like how I learned from Bobby Wagner and like Boj and those guys,
Right.
like it just everything. And like in the Pac-12, everything's so fast, and so like my mind, after going through like all the missionary stuff, having to take all those tests and like the family stuff, like at that time it was just perfect for me to be able to be a sponge in getting all the coaching. Like I was super blessed to have phenomenal coaches in Kalani Sitake and Coach Whittingham.
Yeah.
Also had Coach Tuyaki, Elisa Tuyaki. And so like my junior year, like I said, like I had the best coaching making that transition, and it was super comfortable.
Was
Plus we
Elisa
had like the best.
Elisa at the U? Or was he at
Yeah,
Utah State?
So Elisa recruited me to Utah State as a freshman.
Okay.
And then when I got home from my mission, he was the D-line coach at Utah, which is another reason why he wanted me to come there too.
Yeah.
So how that whole process worked, like it was super crazy just how everything fell into place for me. But Elisa was one of those guys that like he recruited me in high school, came out to our house, did all that stuff, was recruiting me as a tight end, then coming home from my mission and talking to him as the D-line coach at Utah.
Yeah.
It was a super, I was super lucky to be able to have that situation. So junior year playing middle linebacker, and then my senior year, going into my senior year is when I started, and this is to go back to your question, this is when I really started to understand like, okay, the NFL is an opportunity because I'm getting hit up by all these agents going into my senior year.
Yeah. How does that look? How does that look for anybody who hasn't lived that life? How does, like, agent-wise, you're going into your senior year, agents just call you? How is it? How do they get connected to you?
Yeah, so how I got connected to, it was from all different types of outlets. I got hit up from some of my uncles where the agent would reach out to them and then give their contact information to them and then have me reach out to them. During the season, at the time, I want to say there was some rules in the NCAA, but it wasn't like, I think the agents could only contact us like a handful of times during the summer, but we could reach out to them.
Okay.
And so like they would reach out to like my extended family or even sometimes my wife and just like, hey, here's my number. Like if Jason's free, just have him give us a call.
Yeah. And so like,
take
me through a conversation with an agent. You don't have to name the agent, but take me through a conversation that really got you hyped up. Like, what is that like? What happened in it?
So I'll tell you the first time that my actual agent, so I signed with Priority Sports. They're pretty big. They represent guys like, or they were representing guys like Haloti Ngata.
Yeah. Big time.
Guys like that. And so like, and in our community, like the Polynesians, like I said, we like being a younger one, we look up to like whenever there's someone that's doing really good in our atmosphere, like that's who we look up to. And so him being there, I remember him hitting me up and being like, hey, my agents are going to hit you, or some representatives from my agency is going to hit you up. Just make sure you answer the phone.
Haloti hits you up?
Yeah.
Okay.
His brother is married to one of my cousins that she grew up with us, so she's like a sister to me.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I had that connection, and so it was when he hit me up, it was kind of like, oh, this. Like I had talked to him before, did some work with him, like D-line training with him before, and so we had a good relationship at that time. And so he had hit me up and said, hey, some representatives from my agency is going to hit you up. Make sure you answer the phone. And then I'll never forget this. My first call that I had with the agent that called me, his name was Kenny. We had been talking about just the different positions that I wanted to play.
Okay.
And he was like, what do you see yourself playing in the NFL? And I was like, middle linebacker.
Right.
And I would never forget him telling me this. It was like, there's never been a middle linebacker in the NFL since like the 70s that was over 250. And if you think you're going to come in and play in the NFL at 280 as a middle linebacker, I'm sorry, that's not going to
Yeah,
happen.
you tripping.
And I just remember being like freaking so shot down.
Well, there goes my dream, right? Like, okay.
No, because I mean, I like playing DN, but like at middle, you're able to see everything, and like when you communicate, like the biggest thing I loved was like just being able to communicate and people coming to me to understand what checks we're gonna make. You know what I mean?
Because what you guys run? You guys ran
Um,
a 4-3?
we ran a 4-3, a 3-3, and then we had like a bunch of different nuance or like variations
Yeah.
of like a 5 front where one of the like a nickel would come up and play the edge as an end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we had like, but we at the time like we had a pretty big nickel there, and then we had this guy named Tevin Carter that was a safety. He was my guy's like 6'3.5", probably like 235.
Jeez.
Solid. But he like was able to run like a 4.3 40, freaking fast.
Dude, speed kills. Speed kills.
Yeah, so we like bringing him down to the line, like being able to have guys like him where like our defense was so fun to be able to play in and be creative with, just because our coaches made it super easy for it to be sound, where like we cover everything. It's like a bend don't break mentality on our defense is kind of what was established there, and so there was a lot of room for us to be creative in how we played, just as long as we stayed true to what our responsibilities were, so to speak. So
yeah,
talking to the agent, he was just telling me like how you play middle linebacker is so different, just because you didn't play it before playing it now. And so like some of the stuff that I would do, like my read steps might have not been super crisp, or like my reads as far as like reading pulling guards and stuff like that might have not have been like super crisp, but I would always find myself by the ball making a play.
100%.
You know what I mean? So like,
yeah,
he was just telling me like, you can play middle, but like what we want to do at 280 is put you on the end. You'll play defensive end and maybe even some like 3-tech D tackle.
Okay.
So
big difference from what you expected.
Big difference, bro.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I was like, I'm not trying to go into the league and freaking be playing against all these freaking O linemen that are like just monsters.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I already feel like at a disadvantage because most tackles, especially in the Pac-12, I think the shortest tackle that I had went up against that year was like 6'5".
Yeah.
That was the shortest one.
Right.
And so like, I was like, nah, I want to play middles just so that I can see everything in the play.
It's more facilitating. Yeah, you can more facilitate the field. Yeah. So you get, and you actually have a connection with a lot of our viewers are from Kansas City, and I didn't know this, but in the process of you getting, having a breakout year your senior year, and getting all this attention from agents, I didn't know this, but the KC Star actually had an article on you because you had a family member that played for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
My dad's brother.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's a guard, but he's a monster. He's probably like 6'8".
Yeah.
Maybe like 360. Like he's just a huge human being.
Yeah.
And so he went to Arizona State. And played there for Coach Dennis Erickson, who ended up coaching me at Utah. He was the offensive coordinator there when I got there.
Yeah.
But he coached Paul. His name is Paul Fanaika. He said, I want to say he was in the league for like 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
Started off with the Eagles.
Yeah.
Started off with the Eagles. And so having someone like him in my life at the time of just going through college was – that was a huge help, and I'm glad you brought that up because, like for me, I was able to talk to his dad. Like my dad was able to talk to his dad and kind of understanding just how things happen throughout the year. You know what I mean? As far as like when in the off season, kind of conducting yourself appropriately to be able to get a chance at performing in the NFL type of thing. You know what I mean? Like he was a huge help in just making sure, like, look, like you got to focus up. Like this is the stuff that you should be doing. This is the kind of stuff that you should be eating, when you should be eating it. All the little nuances of how I feel like how professionals like conduct themselves. He was super helpful in just giving all that information to me and then being open to just talk to me whenever I needed it.
Yeah. And that stuff is priceless because like even in anything we do, any insight that we can get from somebody that's went through something that we are about to partake of, anytime we can do that, it is going to be like those small things. Like we know the basics. We know we got to be fit. We know we got to be strong. We know we got to be, we know we got to watch film. But being taught how to be a professional is something that seriously is like it's almost like a cheat code.
No, it is. Like you play video games, like you pull up the cheat codes, you can kind of get through a lot of the game a lot easier.
Right. Right. So you
so
had
like,
that.
That's exactly.
Yeah. So you had that going in, and let me. So you play your senior year at University of Utah, and I didn't know KC Stars. So yeah, you almost went to Kansas City. Where did you end up getting drafted to? And explain, kind of walk into that. You're done with the season. Into.
So. Yeah, done with my season at Utah, and right after I had graduated in the summer, and so right after football, it was like I signed with an agent right after the game. We went to the Vegas Bowl my senior year, so I ended up signing with Priority Sports.
Okay.
Right after the game.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of like coming home. I only had like 2 or 3 days to come home. Then we had gotten our training was being done in Orlando. Okay. And so I came home for a couple of days right after Christmas. Then straight after Christmas, we left down. I took my family down to Orlando, and we trained out of this place called D1. There's been some D1s here in Utah.
I remember that. Yeah.
But it's called D1 Sports Facility, and we had a guy named Chuck Smith, who's like a huge D-line consultant for a bunch of different NFL teams, and he runs a bunch of different stuff for college teams and stuff now. So I went down there and was doing all of my combine training and all my defensive line training, because right after the season we had the combine, but then also right before the combine, we were all competing in the Senior Bowl, the Reese's Senior Bowl down in Alabama. And so my group, we went in there starting in January. The game was in February. And then right after that, we went back, trained again for the next couple of months. And then the combine was in, I want to say it was like end of February, maybe March.
Yeah. And how does this work, Jay? I don't know what you can say, but how does this work? Are you paying for this? How does that work?
The agent's paying for all of this.
Okay.
Like all the training, all the housing, the fooding. We get not allotment, but we get like a stipend check.
Yeah.
That kind of covers like food for our families, because all the food that I was eating, all like my diet, every meal that I had was delivered to our house for me to eat. Like if it wasn't delivered from the chefs that my agent had, I wasn't eating it. Yeah, I couldn't eat it.
Jeez.
And so, I mean, that was super hard for me, bro, to be honest, because
so you can't eat like no snacks, no like. So you really, I mean, obviously you can, but like if you're committed to it, yeah. How hard was that for? Like, I know you don't want to like tell on yourself, but how hard is that for you? Because you have an opportunity of a lifetime, but then at one point, like, dude, I'm talking like chilling with is it your wife at the time? Your wife, chilling with your wife, watching a movie. Like, what's a little bit of popcorn gonna do? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No, and I think that for me, like, I was one of those guys where like I would always justify it to be like, okay, if I'm gonna eat like this popcorn, if I'm gonna eat some candy, then like I gotta put that much extra work in tomorrow.
Right. Yes, 100%. Yeah.
And so like that's for sure what happened to me, because like I'm telling you, bro, like my cousin was telling me, hey, just stick to eating like Tongan and Samoan food. Like any Polynesian food, you're solid. But then my agents hit me up and being like, hey, this is what you're eating. You're going to get it delivered at this time, and this time. Make sure that you answer the door and you're there and you're eating. But then I'd have my mom that's talking to my cousin who's in the NFL, and he's like, hey, like as much Tongan food as he can get, you got to take it to him.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
So, shoot, they like my parents, they were always bringing in Tongan food. Like, and so like I was super lucky because the nutritionist that I had, she was really nice. And she tried her best, bless her heart. But like, there's just so much, there's only so much resources about Tongan food and like those types of foods on the internet at that time.
Right.
And so like for her to really try to understand those types of food, it was hard to program that into my nutrition.
Oh, so she tried. She tried the.
She tried.
Wow. Hey, that's what's
she
up.
Tried.
Yeah.
She tried, but there's like I'm telling you, like Loy horse, like that's not
right.
There ain't no really like there's not a lot of use cases around.
Yes.
That kind of stuff,
100%. So you get through this, and let's skip ahead to. Did you have a draft day? What was draft day like for you?
Draft day. So I got picked up undrafted.
Okay. Did you think you were going to get drafted, or did you know before that you weren't going to get drafted?
I had an idea just because, like, when I went to the combine, I had a really bad combine. I mean, I ended up testing really well in, like, my 10-yard split and my vertical jumps, and my broad jumps, and, like, all of the quick stuff. But my bench, like, I was supposed to get, like, a really high number on bench. I only ended up with 23 reps, but I think what I was planning on hitting was like around 35.
Right.
And so I don't like for some reason. And so like
what was it? Was it nerves? What do you think it was? Looking back now, what do you think it was?
Yeah, I mean, I could blame it on that for sure. I just think for me, I wasn't mature mentally yet to be able to just block out all the noise. Cause like when you go to the combine, they really make it hard for you because you come in late, you come in on a flight that's late. Yeah. So then you get a little bit of sleep. Like I got in maybe at like 9:30 and I had to be up at 4 o'clock. No. I had to be up at 3 o'clock for a P test the next day.
Yeah.
And so so I got in at 9:30. Then I had some meetings some random meetings with some scouts from other teams. And that ended up going till 12:30. So then right then had to go to my apartment or to my hotel and sleep. And so I had a roommate that was from Florida State that was there. Okay. But my guy was like, I'm telling you, like I went in and he didn't know that there was roommates. And so my guy had like all his stuff, like all on the bed, had like already was like laying in both beds. And then was his room. You know what I mean? Like in the bathroom, my guy had like hella wet towels in there and like stuff like the towels that you like scrub your face with and stuff like that. Like they were all over the place. You know what I mean? So like, oh man, I was like, what the frick is this?
Yeah. So you're not really briefed. I mean, obviously you're not briefed if you don't know you have roommates, and then you get a late flight in. You're up at 3 a.m. taking a piss test, and then
taking a piss test.
Yeah, and then
you're going straight into more meetings with coaches.
So they're setting you up to a point where by the time it's time to perform, you could possibly be like mentally exhausted, physically exhausted. They test you.
Oh, 100%.
Wow.
100%. And like the guys that really perform well, like those guys, their mental fortitude, like their trainers get them ready like really well. You know what I mean? Like I think for me, because a couple of weeks before I had went to the combine, I came back home to Utah to train here.
Okay.
And just finish out my training block. And so like I don't know, if I would have stayed maybe back in Orlando and was able to just continue on and finish through that program, it might have helped. But like when you get there, you have like a strict schedule and it's super tight because there's so many different athletes there, and like they only bring in the D-line linebackers for like 2 of the days. The whole process is like, I think it's like 6 days or 7 days. Yeah. But for your position group, you only get like 1 or 2 days there.
So are you
like, I guess you could really put it.
Yeah. So are you pretty aware going through the combine? Are you like noticing Like, bro, I'm not obviously in bench, it's a number, but everything else, are you pretty aware in knowing that, like, hey, I'm really not performing well? Or was it kind of just a blur and then you went back and been like, okay, no, I didn't perform well? What was that like for you?
For me, it was a blur for sure. Like,
Yeah.
I think just being out there, my biggest focus was like just trying to go out there and compete, talk to the coaches, and be as honest as I could with them. As far as like the questions that they're asking you, and like coaches, they'll ask you anything. Like
Give me an example of a question
it's
that
kind
kind
of
of threw you off.
a question that threw me off. I think like some of the questions that they'll ask you about like your sexuality and stuff like that.
Really?
Um,
So they get deep.
not in the sense where like they want to like really deep down like try to understand like how you would do in this situation or that, but
Yeah.
like they definitely want to like make it clear like where's your stance and like how do you view things like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then how do you view people that maybe be opposed to how you think or they think opposite of you, you know?
Yeah. So they want to
um,
know how good of a
they want to
teammate you
know,
are.
yeah, they just want to know like where your mind is at when during those different situations, and they'll throw out situations at you like, what if this happened?
Yeah.
How would you react? And so I think those types of questions was mostly what I was getting out there.
Yeah.
If not, like I wasn't like football stuff. It was like here or there. Like some like I remember I went into a meeting with the Saints and like I walk in the room and it's dark, but it's like a long conference room and there's a big table, and at the end of the long conference room there's a screen like a projector screen,
Yeah.
and so you got all these coaches, probably like I want to say 8 coaches on each side, and then you have people standing up behind them, and I'm sitting at one end, and then at the other end, in front of the projector screen, you have a coach, and so like the Saints, when I went in, my meeting with them was maybe like 2 hours, and it was like in the middle of the night. Like we started at I want to say we started at 11:30 and got done at 1:30, and then right after that, with me, they had another guy waiting to come in and do another one of the things that I just did.
Yeah.
So they showed me like 12 different plays, and then they gave one of the coaches showed me 12 plays. Then another coach gave me like 6 different checks that I would have to make depending on like the certain rules of the game. So like if there's a motion, this is what you have to check to.
Yeah.
If the tight end lines up on this side, then shifts. If there's a formation switch or shift, this is what we have to audible to. But the defensive line is going to make a different audible, and you have to let the cornerbacks know what the audible is so they can adjust what they're going to do. If that makes sense.
No, it does 100%. So you're going into a
Yeah, so
whole
like
different, like it's all business at this point.
it's all business. Like
Yeah.
that meeting, that 2 hours was like, I just remember walking out and being like, dang, like my mind is spinning right now.
Right. No,
Just
for
because
real.
like how they do it, like they'll give it like the first half hour is helping you understand all the checks and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the next hour and a half is just going through plays and the coach is saying, okay, what are you doing here? Boom, run through the play. Okay, next play. Okay, what's the check here? Boom,
Jeez.
they'll stop at mid play. Okay, what is the look that you're going to get here? Okay,
Yeah.
they'll fast forward it, then rewind it again and ask you, all these different questions. So like that hour and a half with them doing that stuff was just like, for me, it was like my mind was just spinning
Yeah.
so fast.
Jeez. And then since we're on chicks, let's jump ahead to, so you said you went undrafted, right?
Mhm.
And how does it work going undrafted? Did you get a phone call or did you have to reach
Yeah,
out? Who did you get picked up by?
no. So I got picked up by the Niners, but I was lucky. I had a chance. So there was five different teams that was reaching out to my agent and asking him, if I would be able to sign a free agent with them.
Okay.
I think before that, going into the draft, I was told my agent and we thought we were going to go in the 4th round.
Yeah. That's
and
what the
like
KC Star
just
said.
sitting, yeah, like just sitting through, and we had like a draft party, and so going through that whole process with my family all being there, and then having to sit through the whole draft and not hear my name, that was super hard I think for my wife and I, just because we had put so much into the opportunity of being able to get there. And so, I mean, we still had the opportunity. Like I said, I had five different teams that were offering me free agency contracts.
Yeah.
And then I ended up signing with the Niners, which was like, that was my favorite team growing up. I have hella family out there in the Bay.
There you go.
And so, like, looking back, I wish I would have signed with a different team. But then again, like, when I went out there to the Niners, bro, like, my whole family, like the Tongan community in the Bay, I was able to experience them. And so, like, that whole situation for me being out there, I was out there for about 6 months on the team. And so
tell me, so
that there was a lot that happened.
Yeah, so you get called, right? Niners call your agent, they say we're going to pick you up. Like, obviously, coming from I wouldn't say, maybe we could use the word disappointment, but you and your wife's kind of the disappointment of, like, not hearing your name.
Yeah, disappointment,
right?
For sure.
Disappointment, you know, and then you get the call. Because, you know, I'm going back to, this is what I'm hearing the story, and I'm like, okay, you know, you put a financial stress on the family, and you came back and you helped, and then you put a financial stress with the testing. You go through, you play, right? And now all of a sudden, everybody looks at the NFL as that big ticket of, like, give me the check, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did that process look for you going in? So they fly you out there. How does that work?
Yeah, so they fly me out there. I was lucky enough. I was the highest paid free agent pickup that year.
Okay.
Out of the kids in my class, and so I ended up signing for $60K with them.
Yeah.
Which was crazy because most free agents before, like a bunch of the other free agents that were signing, they were down by like $15K, maybe 10.
Yeah. Are we talking sign-on bonus, or
so,
what is that? What is that like?
Yeah, that was the signing bonus.
So they write you a check for $60K right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that the biggest check you've had in your life up till then?
Up to that point, yeah, that was the biggest check I had ever seen.
Okay. What's your wife and yours energy like right there?
Man, I mean, to be honest, we were happy. I mean, extremely grateful.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was kind of like there was coaches, like I had been getting calls from coaches from the 5th, 6th, and 7th round telling me that they're planning on taking me.
Right.
With their next pick. Like,
really?
And so, like, yeah, so like with how all that happened, like one of the coaches in the 5th round called me, was like, hey, we're really looking at taking you with this next pick.
Oh, so you got the call.
Just sit tight.
You got the call that everybody.
No, it wasn't like the call. It was like they called me earlier in the round.
Oh, okay.
So like they would be like, okay, 5th round just started. We're looking at bringing you in on this pick. We'll call you as the pick gets as we creep up closer to the pick. But just to let you know, like we're thinking heavily. It's between you and a couple different guys.
Wow. Okay.
And so I want to say I got like 6 of those calls from round 5, 6, and 7.
That's got to be an emotional roller coaster for you.
Yeah, bro. So like that 60,000, it was a lot, and like I said, we were extremely grateful for that.
Right.
But at the same token, like I was just thinking about those guys that had signed those contracts in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round. Like, yeah, those guys were getting paid. Like,
what's getting paid? Give me a ballpark. What's the difference of getting paid?
So in the 5th round, I want to say the signing bonus alone in that round is like anywhere from 400,000 to maybe 600,000.
Yeah, so just a cool doctor salary.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and that's the 5th round. 6th round is probably a little bit lower than that, maybe like 2 to 4.
Yeah.
And then your 7th round, you're gonna be 100 to 200.
Yeah.
And then the undrafted guys, like I said, I signed for 60, and that was the highest undrafted free agent contract that year.
Right, because 60 is kind of and I mean it's kind of a number that obviously it's a lot of money, but it's not. Mm-hmm. In reality, yeah, it's not compared. So, but you and your wife are at a super humble point at this point. It sounds like. So you guys, are going in grateful, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely. You said it still kind of lingered in the back of your head, and so you go to San Francisco. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, it was going along the lines of what you're getting into probably, but like going into the Niners, like there was 11 picks that they had, and like some of those guys were defensive ends, and I just remember like one of the guys, he was a fifth round defensive end, and like I want to say like a month into our season or a month into training, I was already ahead of him on the depth chart, and like stuff like that would happen on every team that I would go to where like it was
Jeez.
like for me it was super hard for me to put that in the background where like I'm performing and I'm doing what these coaches are wanting to do, but it's pennies on the dollar compared to what these other guys are getting paid.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Jeez. That's gotta be.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that was just the fight that like I feel like I just was fighting the whole time, like, and that was more so probably just with myself and really just understanding like, you know what I mean? Like, and it didn't help because I'd like talk to other guys and I'd talk to my cousin and stuff, and they'd be like, "Dang, like when you get to the NFL, like you almost have to look out for every single best interest of yourself." You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Just because like the team, like the coaches, there's so much different stuff. Like you think politics is crazy on any level other than the NFL, like in little
NFL's.
league or high school or college. In the NFL, like we're dealing with real like big money.
Yeah.
And so the politics there is even more wild and outlandish than what you would even think.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so when you're coming into this atmosphere that you think or thought it was different, um, I think how I was portraying myself was like I don't know if because I played for four different teams. Played for the Niners, the Raiders, the Redskins, and the Steelers. And like I think for me, it just played that mental game of like, look, like you're worth it. You're worth everything that you say you're worth. If these teams don't look at you like that, then let's go find another industry to make our worth and make our imprint there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think for me, that's kind of the thoughts that I was having, and I mean, who knows if I would have pushed through those and continued to play, but yeah, I mean, I had just had my daughter, and my son was just barely born right before I went to the Steelers.
Yeah.
And like, honestly, bro, I was just done like with people playing with me. You know what I mean? Like I want to be able to be like to teach my daughter and my son, and this is what I was thinking of at the time. Like, I want to be able to teach them that like we don't let people play with us. You know what I mean? Like, they say what they're gonna do, they do it, and if they don't, then it's like to hell with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're not gonna stay here and let them keep on doing like just dragging us around. And
Yeah.
that's kind of my mentality that I had towards like when I was playing with the Redskins and playing with the Steelers, because I honestly felt like I was just an extra body over there. Like I was doing so much good, especially with Washington. Like I remember I would do one-on-ones with Vernon Davis
Okay.
every day that I was there.
Yeah.
With Trent Williams, we would do one-on-ones, and like those guys taught me so much about the game, like things that I could never have even thought of, like little intricate details. Like, okay, you break down the tackle, 6 plays, we'll be able to tell what he's going to do for 5 of those plays. On the 6th play, you make him react to you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Setting up stuff like that, really playing the game within the game. Um,
100%. Who do you
like
say?
those
Who
guys
would you
were
say you
blessed.
learned from the most? Like, who would you say? Like, kind of for the audience, like, who is that guy that really like welcomed you into the NFL? What team did he play for? Who was it for you that really taught you a lot?
That's a great question. So with the Niners, I was super lucky. I had this guy named Aaron Lynch, who
Okay.
was my guy was a beast, and he was younger than me. So it was, I mean, he was younger than me, but at the same token, he had already been playing in the league for 2 years.
Okay.
Um, and so like he was helping me out so much, and he had just like he loved Polynesians.
Yeah.
He's like a big, he's black but he's light skinned. Like
Yeah.
he almost looks like Puerto Rican,
Okay.
low key.
Yeah.
But he's from Florida, and then he got a chance to play with guys like Mike Purcell with the Niners, and
Yep.
um, Upati and those guys. And so he really vibed with the Polynesians. So when I went there, he was one of those guys that really like I was hanging out with a lot. I also hung out with like Navarro Bowman and Ahmad Brooks,
Yeah.
who were on the defensive side. And so when they ran the defensive led meetings, after the meetings, I would sit there with Ahmad Brooks and just kind of picking his brain about different blitzes and different rushes. And then Navarro would be telling us like, okay, like this is what we're doing on this play. This is where you can be, where you can take your shots, take your risks,
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, like for the Niners, for those guys, for sure. When I got to the Raiders, I had a guy named Jihad Ward who was a rookie, but we had played at the Senior Bowl together, and he was a first round pick. But he made it super easy coming in as like an undrafted guy with, like we were living in the hotel, and so he had a house. He was always super nice, like wanting us to come through. Like this dude he gave us like all the little like he had like this Chick-fil-A card that he would give to us, like, hey, whenever you need it, just go and eat. We were there like every day. So we had guys like him and Khalil Mack. When I was with the Raiders, Khalil was super good, like as far as the game and explaining the game.
Yeah.
And that's on another note, that's something different with the NFL is that like a lot of these meetings, they're not ran by the coaches. They're ran by the players, by the vets.
Okay.
And so like these vets, like the coaches will have their little script of what they want to go through during film. But like if one of the vets get up and just start handling the whole meeting, then it'll go wherever the vet wants it to go.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And even sometimes during like our individual periods out there on the field, like the players, like we had plenty times where it was Navarro and Ahmad Brooks running our like our drills and stuff like that, like teaching us through the drills.
Yeah.
Which was super, like that aspect of things really helped me kind of transition into more so what I'm doing now in training. But like had I not had that, I don't know if I'd be doing the training that I'm doing now. So I had him, and then also with the Niners, I was able to get really close to Joe Staley, who was a freaking All-Pro Hall of Fame offensive tackle.
Yeah.
Just because I was playing the edge rusher, and so like there was a lot of times where we stayed after practice so that I could work a move with him, but then also he could get like more understanding of kind of like these new edge rushers in the league now. Like what are they thinking of? If that makes sense,
dude. That's crazy. What is it like?
Yeah,
what is it like? I mean, because you go through different. Who was you starstruck by? Because those are some pretty big names. I mean, Khalil Mack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Staley. Those are some pretty big names. Who are you? Kind of like that moment where you're like, man, I've watched this guy. I'm almost a fan of this guy. Now I'm playing in the huddle with him. Who was that for you?
That's a great question. I think I had it a little bit different because, like I said, in college, like I trained with Haloti.
Yeah.
Gata. So like I was around guys like that already. And like if I was starstruck by guys, like I was starstruck by guys like Haloti or like when I was younger, like you, like it was poly guys that I was really starstruck by. Just because like those are the guys that I felt like I could relate really well to,
Yeah.
But like I think Navarro Bowman was one of those guys that like when he took an interest to me or like when he gave me compliments, it was like, oh, what the heck?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's kind of crazy. Like, you think I'm doing good? Appreciate it, bro. Like, thank you. And then talking to him about like different things that I could do better. He was always super nice and just relaying those types of messages to me. Ahmad Brooks was definitely one of those guys. I want to say when I was playing for the Steelers, I had Tyson Alualu with me.
Yeah, from the Jaguars. He was drafted to the Jaguars. Yeah, big time.
Yep,
first
he
round.
Was big time. So he was one of those guys for sure that as far as like the last part of my career, because I ended off with the Steelers, he was one of those guys that I learned a ton from and that I gained a lot of respect for just knowing him outside of football.
Yeah.
like not even in football. Like I had already knew him outside of football or in football, and like I looked up to him. I knew all the moves that he was doing and how he would set them up. But knowing him as a person off of the field, he's a family man. He's really really smart. Like how he comprehends things, he's super intelligent.
Yeah.
Um, and so like for me, I think that was one of those guys where like I learned so much again just of how to carry myself, how to be a professional, and how to take it to that next level, so to speak.
I love that.
If that
I
makes
love that.
sense.
So you played for the 4 teams. You ended with the Pittsburgh Steelers. How long was your time in the NFL? Like a year
It's
wise?
about 2 years.
2 years. And so you made the decision to go overseas and play, or how did that opportunity came? Because I know you played overseas.
Yeah, that opportunity came actually pretty wild.
Yeah.
So after my stint with the Steelers, I decided to come home and I just worked construction, had a construction company that we were doing like little home remodels and like fence repairs and stuff like that.
Yeah. And when you came home,
Um,
don't want to get too personal, but I mean, did you have a ton of savings from the NFL? Like what's it like
yeah,
coming home?
yeah. So coming home, I mean, we didn't. I'm not gonna say we had a lot like of money saved up,
Uh-huh.
but we we had gotten lucky the year before. Going into my senior year, we had gotten into crypto
Okay.
with with a bunch of my family,
Okay.
and so like at the time it was so brand new that once I got out of like I still had to work, I still had to go and get money, but like the burden was kind of easier to bear, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No,
Just
it does.
because,
And when you say
just because
crypto, you're
like we
talking
had
about like when did you so you
Bitcoin,
Bitcoin?
Ethereum, stuff like that.
Yeah. How crazy was that? What's that experience like?
Man, that I mean, it's been crazy. Just understand, like, for me, it really helped me to really break down the financial aspect of how things run in the country, but then also for myself.
Yeah.
Um, and that like how I break down football is like how I kind of break down finances now, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, Trying to find out, like, especially with investing into crypto, just trying to understand the different technologies that are within crypto and how they work and how to operate them, if that makes sense. So
No,
like
100%.
the so like right now with like the NFT contracts and stuff like that, like
Yeah.
we've been heavy into that for I want to say like four years now, 4 or 5 years, just because like when we first got into crypto, it was like back in 2014, and then going through the NFL, coming out of the NFL and learning more about crypto, but then also having my other job, doing all that stuff really helped my mind grasp those types of just how money works. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And how to use it wisely. And so doing all that stuff for a couple years, my brother was playing at Stanford. He had a coach there that was Japanese,
Yeah.
um, and he like randomly they came out here to play against Utah, and he saw me. Like, this is so random. He saw me at the hotel
Yeah.
and just came over to me and started talking to me about an opportunity to go to Japan and play football.
Yeah.
And like I'm telling you, it was so random that like he came up to me in the lobby, and when he was talking to me about it, I was like, you know what, bro, just like I'm not going anywhere to go play football. If I'm not going to play in the NFL, I'm done playing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's the pinnacle.
Um,
It's the highest point. You almost don't want to go back down.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like if I got to play, and like especially with the pay that they had first offered me, like what he told me is like, okay, these players come out there and they're making like 5 or 6 grand a month, playing football. And like to me, I'm like, that's not even worth it, because by the time
Yeah.
that I'm done paying, I have to send money here and get it turned into US dollars.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna get taxed on that. Like it just doesn't make sense. So I
So
was super blessed with them because the Japanese coach that found me, he fell in love with me. And if you've worked with Japanese people, like when they bring you into their circle of influence, like they'll fight for you no matter what. They'll get you the best of the best.
Wow.
You know what
Okay.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like they'll do anything that they can to take care of you, and to make sure, like if you're not Japanese, like, and they're bringing you in, like they really like try to keep you there, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
make you happy so that you want to stay there forever. Which
That's
I mean, I honestly would have ended up staying out there. Like they were super grateful to me. I was the first player in that league to ever get a six-figure contract.
really
Um,
6-figure
yeah,
American.
a six-figure American contract.
Yeah, dude, that's
Which like
crazy.
out there, and I mean out there they have money. Like the companies that own the teams out there, it's like IBM
Oh,
and
so they got
Microsoft.
they got money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they got money. But like the league and how it's set up, you're only allowed to have two foreigners on the field at a time.
Okay.
Everybody else, all other nine of the players have to be Japanese,
Yeah,
full Japanese.
that's crazy.
Um, yeah, it's wild. And so I was able to go out there. I mean, there was like I want to say a year of going back and forth on like just contract negotiations and really trying to push them to pay me what I felt like I was worth.
And you were doing this on your own, or you had an agent at the time?
No, I was just doing well, I had an agent, but my agent was just telling me, he's like, look, foreigners, they don't get paid that much. And so like I can help you out with this, but I'm gonna have to take my cut. And so like he helped me understand the things that I needed to make sure that I had in my contract. Like he
Yeah.
would check over the contracts after I'd send it to him. But like as far as the negotiation stuff, that was all done by me and my wife. Or sorry,
Dang.
my wife and I.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you come to a number, you go out there and play, and I mean, you kind of said it. There's only two foreigners. The rest are Japanese. What's the skill level like?
Man, it's crazy. It's like going from driving on the freeway to driving in a parking lot with just the cones.
Really? So you're like, so what was your career like over there?
I mean, playing out there, it's so different just because Japanese players, like those guys that are playing and like the high level athletes of that league, like they probably picked up football like maybe after high school
Right.
or maybe like during high school. So like the technique like level, because I mean off the rip, Japanese people, they're super, like if they're gonna do something, they're gonna give you everything they got.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's no halfway of anything. It's if we're gonna do it, we're gonna give it to you full speed. Even if we mess up, it does, like my technique might not look as good as what it looks like in America, or like I might not be able to take the best angle, but like I'm giving you everything I got, right? So um like there's some really good Japanese athletes. It's just like I said, like they didn't grow up playing football in elementary or in junior high. Um, and so like a bunch of what you learn from just playing, like they're still trying to figure all that stuff out, if that makes sense. Um, I mean, granted, like Japanese people, they want to be the best at what they do, and so they
Yeah.
really fight and work hard to be able to understand stuff. But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it's just like you can't fault them because they didn't grow up playing this.
Right.
But I mean, it is good football out there, and like there's a lot of a lot of transitions to where like you have the sumo stables. A lot of the sumo stables will send their lower tier or like big sumos to go and learn mobility and like maximize their
With
range of motion by
football.
doing stuff like football.
That's
You
crazy.
know what I mean?
Damn.
So like
That's
a bunch of like the linemen, like they were good. Like they had strong bunches and like really good bases, but like getting them off of their, or like out of technique to where like their shoulders are coming out of frame and their hips are still staying square to the line, like that was always stuff that they were battling with. But like I said, those guys, like they'll fight till the end.
yeah.
Like even if
Well,
they're holding or whatever, like it's a pride thing to them. You know what I mean?
that's crazy.
So
No,
I mean,
100%.
the athlete, like, it's pretty good football out there. I'm not gonna say it's like the best, but like if I had to really compare it to, I would say it'd be maybe like high school type, like
Yeah.
speed, not speed, but like mind wise
Yeah.
to compare to out here. Like the high level high schools, like the ones in Texas or like the Cali, like the big level high schools. That's kind of
Okay.
what I can equate it to.
That's crazy. So you play, how many years you play there?
Played there for 1 year and then had to come home for COVID.
Oh, that's right. So now that COVID's over, are you still thinking about playing? What's your mindset now? What have you moved to?
So right after COVID, I coached. I started coaching. I went to BYU and coached in their safeties room for a season, and then went to Pleasant Grove, coached there for a season. And then these last couple of years, literally just been training, doing football specific trainings, and then also like strength and conditioning stuff
So you do
here in
your
Utah
own
County.
program. You do your own program now?
Yeah. hmm
What is
So I
that
got two
business like?
different programs. There's Players to Prospects is our group where we do all the strength and conditioning stuff. We have kids as young as 4, and then our old, like we have some college athletes that come through, and hopefully in the summer we'll get some of these pro guys coming in during their off season to come and train with us. But that, like the Players to Prospects side, is our strength and conditioning side, but also we have one of our coaches is like a mental coach or
Yeah.
like a mental strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah.
And so his biggest thing is with these kids trying to help them build the mental capacity to be able to, if you get the loss, you get the loss, you get the win, you get the win, never trying to go too high or ride too low type
Yeah.
of thing.
That's what's up.
Especially within sports. And so like he does a really good job in doing all that stuff with our athletes, and I'm super grateful for him. Shout out to Jeffrey Mann, Coach Jeffrey Mann. He's actually a co-offensive coordinator down at West Jordan,
Okay.
and a running backs coach down there. So we kind of combined to do our Players to Prospects, which is the strength and conditioning side, and then on the flip hand with just football training, linebacker and defensive line training. I represent a group called Team Neverfold,
Okay.
and the owner of that, or the guy that started that, his name is Vic Unga. He's from Timpview.
Yeah.
But he played at Utah and at BYU. Super solid. His knowledge, like his reservoir of knowledge, is so deep and like so vast that like it's been such a blessing to be able to learn the game from his eyes, because he breaks it down differently than how I even broke it down coming into it, coming into playing when I was playing. So it's been super fun to see just my growth and learning from him, and then like the kids that we're able to impact now. Because at the end of the day, that's kind of what we're trying to do, is just help these kids. Basically, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but like operate like professional athletes, or at least start to think like that. Because I think especially with the kids, if they can kind of put themselves like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, and this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm gonna get there, type of thing. It's easier for them to map out as far as like what that plan looks like. Not to say like that, like I don't like using goals or like setting goals, just because I'm not really like a goal setter guy.
Yeah.
Like our kids, we try to teach them like, okay, there's levels. There's always a next level that we can attain. How do we get to that next level? Let's break it down. Let's try to look at every single step we're going to take, and let's be purposeful with every single step that we do take, so that we can, hit that level, and then it's on to the next.
Yeah.
And like that's a huge credit to Jeffrey, man, and then also with Victor Unga, in helping me to help these kids.
Dude, Vic is a bundle of knowledge, man. His
Yes,
perspective on things, and I mean, plus he's strong as shit, dude.
he's a mountain, bro.
Yes, he really is. But no, that's cool, man. I didn't even know that you guys were in on that. Maybe we'll have to have Vic on here for sure.
Dude, I know he'd love that, and like I said, he's got a deep reservoir of knowledge that he
does.
would be able to bless us with.
The conversations I've had with Vic, he's very intellectual. He knows a lot, and he knows the process of things. And then also he has his own play, like he has a player career, so he played. And so, man, I love that. I didn't even know. That's what's up, man. That's cool. Yeah, me and Vic are the same
Appreciate it.
age. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So Vic's dad and my dad are first cousins, and then his
Okay.
mom and my mom, they grew up best friends in high school.
Oh man, so you guys
So
are deep ties. Yeah,
yeah, I've known Vic for a long time.
I love that, man. And let me ask you, for our audience, what would you say? I mean, you have a crazy story, and just the people you've been able to brush shoulders with, and the insight that you've been able to share with us. I mean, it's incredible what you've done, and then also the different trials and stuff you were faced with throughout the whole process. What would you say? I mean, I'm sure you can't pinpoint a specific takeaway, but what would be the biggest takeaway when it comes to sharing to anybody going through a situation and just, you know, the unknown, going into the unknown? What would be a takeaway that you could share with us?
Man, I love that question. I appreciate you for asking me that. But like you said at the very end, like there's so much unknown. I think as a younger athlete, you just got to be 100% and be purposeful with everything that you do. I think when you operate life in that manner, you start to do things that are only beneficial for you and those around you, your team, if that makes sense. I think with how much doubt there is, like there's times in my life where I wish like I would have just put in maybe a little bit more effort or just try to see things through that I couldn't see.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But I think the one thing that if I could go back and kind of change is just like believe in yourself. The situations that you're put in there's a reason to that. Like those types of opportunities, those are God-given opportunities, and you just have to believe in yourself. If you weren't in that situation, then that wasn't for you. You gotta that there's more out there for you. You know what I mean? But if you're put in these situations here, no matter what time in your career that you're in, if you ever start to feel some type of doubt, you gotta squash that and then just push forward. And the only way that you can really gain that confidence is just by showing up and getting the job done, basically.
Love it.
Showing up to workouts and putting in your all to the workouts, showing up to school and making sure that you're learning and you're engaging with your teammates, or not even your teammates, your classmates and your teachers.
Yes.
Engaging with them and really understanding like their perspectives, because at the end of the day, when you get to where you want to be, if it's the NFL or whatever, there's so much moving parts that like if you're not confident in who you are and what you bring to the table, it's going to be really easy to get lost and kind of just, I guess, fade it out, so to speak.
I love that. I love that, man. Sorry, keep going if you want to keep going.
No, you're good. I think, and the biggest reason why I say that is because I think for me, like getting into the NFL, like I definitely had some moments where I was like, dang, like these guys, like they're bringing in dudes that are way better than me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like I know for sure, like for the time that I lasted in the NFL, I mean, I don't think I would have lasted that long had it not been for like how big I was, or like I had my cousin in the NFL and stuff like that. I just think that my confidence in myself and really understanding like I'm meant to be here, like, and I'm gonna continue to be here if I believe in myself. You know what I mean? That would be my biggest, I guess, tip to people is
love that, man.
Get that done early, especially if you're a young athlete. Like, build that confidence early. Don't let people shake you. No coaches, no nothing else. Like, if you're putting in the work and you're showing up and you're putting in the hours, like that's how you're gonna build that confidence in yourself. So you continue to do that, and you'll be solid.
Yeah, man. Thank you. No, and I normally don't do this, but I'm really quickly going to. Normally I close it on this, but you spark something. I know these guys personally. I know Jason personally. I know Vic personally, and I didn't know they were doing business together. But I want to add to any young athletes watching, seriously, I look back, and I know other athletes look back, and they look back, and if they would have taken it as serious as, or even if we would have had the opportunity to have people like Jay and like Vic in our lives at the critical moments like high school, junior high, you look at it in the fighting game. If you know your fight's coming up, you train for it and you live by it. And your training regimen is crazy because you have a fight coming up. And in life, our fights are always unknown. We never know when we're going to fight. And so investing, or having our parents invest, whatever situation we're in, investing in training with people like these guys, like who I'm talking to right now, investing training into that is going to be something that will never be regretted, because it goes past sports. It goes past the actual, like the glitz and the glam of the game. It goes into, you'll take it into your daily life. And so normally, like I said, I don't close on that, but I had to say that, like, get with this group. If you're in that area, if you're in Pleasant Grove, if you're in Utah County, get with this group. Like, seriously, I'm mind blown that you guys are working together. So that's what's up, man.
Appreciate you, brother. No,
Yes.
Thank you so much. And like I said, like, I'm super grateful for this opportunity. Austin, you already know, like I said, bro, I'm telling you, like, the kids in my class and the kids that are younger than us and even a little bit older than me, like, you're a legend to us. So I appreciate you reaching out to me and letting me come on and speak to you.
Man.
We got to get lunch soon so that we can talk off the camera, but I appreciate you, bro, so much.
No,
Thank you so much for what you're doing and all that you're continuing to do. Because, like, people, like, the messages that you're sharing and the perspective that you have, it's such a blessing. And I love to listen to your shorts and love to see your podcast interviews. So keep on going, bro. I appreciate you.
Hey, likewise, man. I appreciate the kind words. I don't know about a legend, but, man, thank you so much.
Legend, bro.
Appreciate it.
All caps, bro. All caps.
Man, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. But, yeah, that's
No problem,
Perspective Podcast. We're signing off. Man, thank you all for tuning in, and have a good one. Till next time.
This has been the Perspective Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on social so you never miss an episode.